Good afternoon, members of council, and welcome to the special town council meeting of October 4th, 2022. And I will call the meeting of council to order. Before we move to the approval of the agenda, if our clerk, Laura Morrison, I believe has some correspondence.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you to council. I have a resignation letter that I'd like to read to be entered as record. It's dated the 27th of September 2022 to the attention of Town Clerk Laura Morrison. As per section 17 of the Municipal Government Act, Mayor or Councillor resignation. I am delivering this letter to you to officially resign from my post as Municipal Councillor with the Town of Wolfville. Sincerely, Una C. Proudfoot.
Thank you, Laura. And the Deputy Mayor has a motion.
I move that council receive and accept the letter of resignation as submitted by Councillor Una Proudfoot.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Elliott. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. And that is passed. And now we will move to approval of the agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda, please, for the special council meeting? Councillor Butler.
I move that the agenda be approved as circulated and or amended.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Councillor Ingham, CAO, is there anything to add to this agenda?
No, just a suggestion as I'm looking at the agenda and item 3E, which is the special election expenses. Mike does have an info report he's going to step you through. We weren't able to circulate that in advance. And just wondering if maybe we should start with that so that everyone's aware of the expenses, because some of the other RFDs do refer to that information. So it might be helpful to flip it and start with the expenses.
That makes sense. So we will move E to before A when we get to those items. We have a motion. Have we approved the agenda? No. Okay, but we have a mover and a seconder. All in favor with that one change, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed. So that is changed. I am not aware that we have anybody for public input. Mike? Long? That's correct. So we will move right to the motions list, and we'll start with item 3E, special election expenses. And I understand Director McLean has a report for us.
Usually I say you've had a chance to look at this report in your agenda, but you have not had a chance to look at this report in your agenda due to timing. We wanted to ensure that council was aware of the general cost of holding the election. What's highlighted in this one is essentially what the last election costs for the town, at least external dollars going out. I can make that a little bigger.
Thank
if
you.
That's
great. Thank you.
Is that okay?
That's okay. We just need the words. We need the
We'll
numbers.
do this. We can get Aaron in. I can still make this big enough, I believe. I think I said earlier in the other meeting, bear with my technical abilities. They ebb and flow. So we'll be able to see the CAO. We'll still be able to have this.
We reduce those other two documents beside her.
I will do that. A little cleaner?
Yeah.
Okay. So this information report, there's no motion required in this one. The motions will come in a couple of the RFDs that you already have in hand. Typically, the budget for an election would occur on a regularly scheduled process. The authority, which you'll see later, is delegated to the CAO, and the budget process information is brought forward. Obviously, we don't have that this time. So this is meant to bring us all up to speed of what did it cost last time and a little bit of the breakdown where those dollars go. I don't think we need to set a budget for it per se, because at this stage, too early to know exactly what amounts would change. The key point is, generally speaking, special elections cost more or less the same as a full election, because you have to follow the full process. You have to have returning officers, you have to have poll clerks, all of that functionality. So there's not generally, in past experience, significant savings in the special election. So that said, Our last election in 2020 cost approximately $25,000. It was $24,797, I think is the exact amount. And in terms of what makes that dollar amount up, I think that's large enough for everybody to see, or I can make it a bit bigger. So the electronic voting portion of it was the large of the $25,000, just under 12, approximately $12,000 was the cost of the electronic voting. The next largest chunk, which is quite a bit smaller, is for the poll clerks, all of the other officers, deputy, returning officer and whatnot, the per diems that go for the election day, $3,800. Supplies and sundry, kind of putting together paper supplies, poll booths, all those smaller items totaled some 3,700, and it's a series of smaller expenses. Advertising, just a shade over 2,500. You'll have to go through the process of the appropriate advertising as required for an election. So those dollars will be there. Tech and cell support, there were some small dollars for cell used specifically for the election, and we bought 2 iPads at the last election. We anticipate we'll probably have to do the same thing. That facilitates the electronic voting station. And in this report, if you had a chance to read it in advance, you'd see that we redeployed those 2 iPads from the last election inside the organization, because quite frankly, adding technology is an ever-growing issue. If we have to get some extra iPads now, which I anticipate we will because everything's been fully deployed, we have a growing need for our outside workers to start to use tablets to record repairs and maintenance, any number of things out in the field that will be tied automatically to the GIS system. So there is a use for that, what is a one-off expense for the election, and we'll make use of that down the road. And then last time there was a little bit of legal cost. I don't have specifically what that was for, but there's occasionally items that come up that we want to check with our legal resources to make sure that the interpretations are correct. Of the 25,000, part of the key is, and I think I have it in here, probably can't find it at this stage, is that includes all your costs going out to third parties, buying equipment, the stipends. It does not include an internal allocation of staff cost. And the town clerk in the last number of elections and likely in this one becomes assigned that task. So as much as possible, that work is to happen during the regular workday, but there's no way you're going to pull off an election with that being the case. So there will be some overtime, some added wage costs, which Laura is just excitingly looking forward to. It will be a good practice run for the full election in 2024. But there will be some smaller costs there. We don't identify it for this purpose because generally it's internal. So at this stage, I wouldn't change the $25,000 estimate. I think it's safe to say to council, it'd be $25,000 to $30,000 to have this special election. And that's really at the end of the day, the other RFDs speak to it. You're deferring certain authority to the CAO, and the CAO through also Laura will ensure that the election is carried out fully, appropriately, and on time. And if we set a budget of 25,000, but it costs 28, the election has to happen in the appropriate manner, following the appropriate laws and on time. So that's the bucket of goods that we're dealing with. We would have time to have more detailed estimates if it was part of a budget process. But if you've read all the other info, we have a tight time frame to pull this off. And as things happen, we can bring updates to council. If the electronic voting is some substantially different number, council would be made aware, but obviously it would become part of that election cost as it occurs. Fair enough. And if there's any questions, I'll leave it on kind of the breakdown because that might be the key just for understanding.
There's a question.
Thank you, Mike. I just am curious, this is not questioning your numbers here, but how does that compare with the non-electronic voting? Like, what would the costs be if they were?
If you went back far enough, actually the cost of doing non-electronic was close to, in the early days of electronic, it almost, non-electronic costs the same as electronic. The real impact was if you have both. And I think, and I'll let Aaron speak to this I think in maybe some of the other reports, the manner that we're doing the when can people use the electronic voting, that sort of thing, or when can paper ballots be used? There's not substantial savings in getting rid of electronic voting
Okay.
because you're going to have other supplies kick in. And I also think you have a desire to outreach to as many members of the community to vote as possible, and electronic voting has more or less become
Right.
a growing accepted norm.
And this is assuming there's an actual contest. I mean, if we have one candidate and the person wins by
Correct.
acclamation, then
Correct.
we wouldn't, okay.
I keep going to grab my coffee, but it's not mine.
Other questions? Okay, is that your expense report?
That is it. And I'll leave you to the real business at hand and shrink this
Thank
down.
you. So we will move back to A, date setting for special election.
Okay, so as Mike mentioned, the timelines are pretty tight. So the first thing we're looking at here is setting the dates for the special elections. So there's very specific timelines that we must adhere to, and they're detailed there in the RFD. And based on those timelines and just the time of year, because we're going to be coming on holiday season, the following dates are what we are recommending. So the special council meeting is obviously today. The special election day would be Saturday, December the 10th, and nomination day, Tuesday, November the 15th. And really it is just because of the timelines that are set out in the Elections Act.
So we can't have a nomination day before the middle of November?
It says here, nomination day for a special election shall be the fourth Tuesday preceding the ordinary polling day, and the polling day must be within 11 weeks of the date of this meeting.
So my question was, could we have moved the whole thing back?
Back as in...
So why couldn't the nomination day be in 2 weeks, and then that would mean the election day would be before December 10th, whatever the math on that is. I just wonder why we're waiting so long for nomination day. I understand
Oh. I think-
before the ordinary polling day. So and I understand the polling day can't be more than 11 weeks, but can it not be less than 11 weeks?
I think Erin wants to speak.
Yeah, it can be. We were trying to give ourselves not the full amount, because originally I think December 17th was the date we were looking at, and we backed it up because we didn't want to bump into the holidays. But we wanted to give ourselves enough time to get prepared as well, where we hadn't planned this in our workload, and we have to reach out to IntelliVote and actually get that all set up for the e-voting, and just didn't want to leave ourselves scrambling to try to meet a tighter time frame. So council certainly can set it sooner, but those were just some realities we were
No,
bumping up
I
against.
understand. That's helpful. Thank you. Any other questions? So, motion? Okay, Councillor Butler?
Is it I move that committee of the whole
No,
for,
we
no,
are in
it's
council.
right.
Council.
Okay. I move that council approve the setting of key dates for the special election as follows. Special council meeting, October 4th, 2022, special election day, Saturday, December 10th, 2022, nomination day, Tuesday, November 15th, 2022.
Seconder, please. Councillor Ingham, any other questions? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so that is passed. Delegation of authority, you're just going to stay up there and do
I'm
all
just
of
going to
the
stay up
one,
here,
okay,
yeah.
so just carry on.
Yeah, so in this one, we are looking for approval to delegate to the CEO to appoint the returning officer, assistant returning officers, and to set the tariff of fees that Mike was talking about earlier.
And just on that, like it will be a combination of Laura and Barb. We're going to sit down because Laura's away for a couple of those weeks in Scotland. So we just want to, sorry for the dog in the background. I figured that would happen. I just want to see what makes the most sense. And also the province has offered to help us. So there's some capacity through their elections office right now to provide support to our teams. So some combination thereof will happen. I just want to make you aware, and we'll know more in the coming days when we've had a chance to sit down and figure out what makes the most sense.
Thank you. Somebody like to read this motion, move this motion? Thanks, Dan.
RFD 056-2022, delegation of authority. I move that council delegate the power to appoint a returning officer to the chief administrative officer. That council delegate the power to appoint assistant returning officers to the chief administrative officer. I move that council delegate the authority to make, revise, and amend the tariff of fees and expenses to be paid to any person for their services and expenses under the Municipal Elections Act, and may similarly revise and amend the tariff and provide for a method of rendering and verifying accounts for payment as part of 2022 special election for the town of Wolfville to the chief administrative officer.
Seconder, please. Councillor Butler, I'll get you next time, Wendy. Any discussion on this? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. And method of using preliminary list of electors.
Yeah, so again, just with the timelines involved, we would like approval to use the list of electors from the last federal election, which was September 2021. The alternative to that is to carry out enumeration, which we just don't really have time for. We would have to go around door to door. So, you know, in this time frame, not really practical. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Motion. Would you like to read it? See it.
Oh,
Yes.
C.
I would move that council approve the temporary council committee
No,
appointment.
C.
See.
Sorry, C. I would move that council approve the use of the list of electors used in the most recent federal or provincial election as the method for producing the preliminary list of electors for the town of Wolfville 2022 special election.
The seconder, please.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Councillor Ingham, is there are there any questions? Councillor Ingham, your light was on. Just to confirm, there will be people who have moved to Wolfville subsequent to this enumeration. Will we follow the normal process of so that people can make sure they're on the electors list?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just our starting point, and then there'll be that period where folks can get added to the list right up until the day of the election
And
itself.
similarly, with respect to Acadia students?
Correct.
Yes.
If they meet the criteria to vote, yes.
Right, okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. And temporary council committee appointments. The Councillor Proudfoot was obviously assigned to a number of committees, and we will be redoing the committee.
we have an info report just before.
Yeah.
There's another information report.
Just on the e-voting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, so as Mike had mentioned as well, we do have access to IntelliVote. I've reached out to them. We used them in the last election. Our bylaw covers us using electronic voting, and obviously to help enable people to vote in a variety of ways is what we want. It's more beneficial. So we're really just asking, or we don't need a motion for this. We're just letting you know that we have a bylaw in place, and we are looking to use electronic voting, which is voting via telephone and on the internet, as well as in-person voting.
I was gonna ask, so they
Yeah,
will be able
yeah,
to vote in
absolutely,
person as
yep.
well.
Yeah, this will follow what we did in the 2020 election. There's really not a decision for council because due to the tight time frame, if you want to go in a different direction, you'd have to actually amend the bylaw, and we don't have time to get through a first and second reading in time to actually change the bylaw and then carry out the election within the legislative time frame. So we'll use the same approach we did in 2020, which was the e-voting up until the day of the election and paper ballots day of. And certainly you'll have an opportunity to talk about this before the 2024 election. And if you do want to change that for the next, regularly scheduled election, you can do so. But for this one, we have to follow what we have in place right now due to time constraints.
Okay, any questions? All right, and we've done election expenses, and now a report on temporary council committee appointments.
Okay. And I think you were going to start this, but yes, with Councillor Proudfoot, or Lucinda Proudfoot now leaving, it's left some gaps on our committees, and the Mayor and CEO discussed and made some recommendations for who should take over on some of those committees. So there is listed there in front of you in the RFD. So for Planning Advisory, Deputy Mayor Madeira Boss would become chair, Jen Ingham would be appointed. For Source Water, Councillor Butler would be chair. For Kings Point to Point, Councillor Butler and Mayor Donovan would be on that committee, and Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition, Councillor McKay would be the alternate.
And just to confirm, Mayor Donovan would be the alternate on Kings Point to Point, and Mike Butler would be the member.
And this is just really for the months of October and
Correct.
November, and I guess in December, although I don't
December,
know if
yeah.
not all groups meet in December. So, and some of these groups, Source Water only meets 4 times a year, so I'm not sure when they actually meet. Yeah. All right. Just to let you know, because we are going to identify new committee appointments within the next few months, and there will be a new person around the table as well. My thought here was just to put, I know Jody was on Annapolis Trails Committee, so she obviously is up to speed. I was the alternate on Kings Point to Point, so as much as one can be up to speed there, I am. And the Deputy Mayor is already on PAC and is the vice chair, was the vice chair, so that's the logic in those appointments. So, but if anybody doesn't like the appointments or wants to suggest something else, certainly we'll entertain that. Councillor Ingham.
It's not that common. I just wanted to confirm with you, Mayor Donovan, that we normally have, I think we speak to you, or we speak about the other committees coming up that we may want to be on coming in the future. So are we safe to assume that we're going to remain on these committees till basically December the 31st until there's a new councillor, the ones we're presently on?
Yes, and we would
Okay.
normally change the committee. So that discussion will happen over the next couple of months or shorter than that, with committee appointments made, but they take place in January.
Okay.
Okay. So this just helps us ride out the next few months. All right, hearing no other comments, all in favor? Oh, no, we don't have a motion on the floor, do we? Somebody like to read that motion? Councillor Ingham, your lights on.
My lights on. I'm not turning it off. I would move that council approve the temporary council committee appointments effective October the 4th, 2022 until December 31st, 2022, as outlined in RFD 061-2022 as follows. Planning Advisory Committee, Isabel Madeira Voss will be the chair. Jennifer Ingham will also be, I guess, on there. Source. It's a long meeting. Okay. Source Water Protection Advisory Committee, Mike Butler, chair. Is that correct?
No,
That
that
is not. I have the wrong printing on.
no, I'm sorry.
Oh, so
Yes,
that
he
is
is chair,
That is chair. Okay.
but he's not chair of Kings Point to Point.
Okay. So Kings Point to Point, Mike Butler, and will not be the chair. Will just be on the committee. Wendy Donovan will be the alternate. Annapolis Valley Trails Coalition, Jody McKay will be the alternate. Is that it?
I think so. I think so. Who would like to second that? Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I know, it is, particularly when it may, well, it is Ingham. It is Ingham. We're gonna-
I should put Ingram and then.
Yes.
Would show up. Sorry.
Any comments, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That is passed. We have an adjournment. CAO, I'm not aware that we have an in-camera.
No, we don't. I was just going to suggest, I got a text from Alex and he did offer that if you wanted him to come back, if anyone did have any outstanding questions related to Highland, he could do that. If not, we can leave it. I'm just throwing the offer out before you adjourn.
Anybody?
No, I'm gonna email.
He's gonna email. I think we're good. Mike is going to talk to him offline. So,
Okay, thank you.
all right, a motion to adjourn, please. So moved. I think that was Councillor Ingham, and I think I heard the deputy mayor as well. So seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you so much. It's been a long meeting.